We have got a lot going on at the moment, but I'm determined to keep to my Saturday video. I've been putting out other little bits and bobs that I don't consider main content, but I want to keep giving you interesting, valuable videos, at least on the Saturdays. So I decided, even though I've got a massive backlog of job build videos, I'm going to just sit on them for a bit and do an off-the-cuff video, which I think you'll find really interesting. And it's quite timely because it's about what's happening now with us setting up to move the workshop. So we've got a provisional date in January to move into the new space. I'm going to show you some photos of the space and my SketchUp plan for how we're planning to lay it out, and talk about the costings. I've got a costings sheet here because I want to let you in on this whole process, because you followed me, a lot of you followed me from one of my early videos where I said we're going to move and it kept getting delayed, right through to now we are moving, and I want to give you an insight into this process of moving and how we're managing it. Not that we're any experts, because it's all new to us and the costs involved and everything are pretty daunting, but we are just doing it. So yeah, I'll show you how we're doing it, and please give me any advice if you think you know better on anything that I share. This is my second take of this video because I started showing the costs and then realised that I was meant to be keeping the cost of a couple things confidential. So what I've done is just shown you the total we've arrived at, because I think this could be educational for other people just interested in the process of a workshop move. I will come back to this in more detail because I think it might be helpful to show you the space first, which I've got, let's see, it's here. Yeah, so this is the building. It's been partitioned off, and this roof pitch here, the space under there, is what we're going to have. That's 2,900 square foot, which is bigger than we first thought we'd get, but we're getting a good price on it. And it is just mind-blowing what is in the space already, and the landlord is quite happy for us to have and use. So you see various little photos of bits of kit in various states of disrepair, some of them abandoned, but most of this is kind of up for grabs. The landlord's just happy for it to be used, or he'll get shot of it. The space itself, I think there's a better photo down here. That's maybe the better photo. So this is one of the most incredible things about it, is it already has two high-end spray booths which work. So they've both got massive fans, two massive fans in each. This is one spray booth, there's another in there. These fans go up through the roof and they're just ready to run with, which is incredible to think of what it saves us in not having to set them up. It's also insulated, because the whole 2,900 square foot was really just the spray area for a very large joinery manufacturer that went bust. That's another view of the main space. So the insulated wall sort of ends there, but there's another space beyond, and there's an existing roller shutter there. Just sort of behind us in this view and to the left, the landlord's agreed to fit a new roller shutter, because that will really work for our planned workflow pushing through the space. You'll be seeing more of this in due course, but that gives you a feel for stuff. So on to these costings. Forgetting where it is. This rather terrifying figure, I'm finding it hard to bring it below that, and I've got to get all that on finance. We don't have the cash lying around. So just to give you a run through of stuff. So running costs, I mean, that's in the region of 10 grand. Just wanting to make sure that we've got cash to keep us going when productivity goes down, because about 10 grand monthly running costs to keep the business going. So we just need to make sure we've got a buffer, and I'm thinking I need to invest in the website some more to make sure the work comes in to justify the extra overheads. We've got the panel saw agreed, and then all this various other stuff, which I've been estimating. I've just blanked out the figures now, but a lot of that's sort of in flux. There's lots of other things I'd like to put on there, but I think I'm trying to prioritise here things that are going to bring an immediate productivity increase, so they start paying for themselves straight away. And I've been using Trello for various bits of planning out. I don't think there's anything confidential on there. And I showed you before, oops. Well, it might have been an Instagram story, not everyone would have seen it, but I showed, we've been planning out the workshop workflow. So this was me and Brady, we sat down and we said, okay, what do we do from start to finish for a typical job? And then we're listing the processes and the sort of space and kit that we need. With this color coding is when we think we need a new piece of equipment, so that fed into the pricing, cost planning. So this is fairly comprehensive now of our typical workflow. But we're thinking also, as we set the space up, we're thinking also, is it going to work for games table manufacture? Because that's another iron that I've got in the fire. I want to move forward this games table that you may have picked up on in the past. This design for a multifunction table that we're now trying to push. So you will be hearing more about that in future. So when it comes to the space itself, let's see. Thought I had that open. All right, so here we go. So I have been into the space and surveyed it in some detail with my laser measures so that I could create this 3D drawing. So we're looking at a space which is, let's just check, between the insulated walls, which they've added in, we've got, I'm not finding the right line, am I? But it's about 8.5 meters that way. And the total length that we've got is, again, around about 29 meters. But they've done these partitions. They've done these partitions off the end here and there. So in between those two, you've got the suspended ceiling with insulation on it. But then it just goes right up to the fairly tall pitched asbestos roof with metal trusses sort of up above that height. So as we started planning out the space, me and Brady, originally just with sketches, which I might have actually, might be interesting to show them. Yeah, we were sort of doing workflow things, and we were, because we had the shutter down that end, which is sort of down the bottom right of this image now. That's the shutter that was there, and we were looking at, well, let's try and get a tidy workflow going through. We had all this crossing back and forth because the space where the spray booths is fixed. So then we thought, well, let's just see if the landlord's open to adding another shutter in, which amazingly is very accommodating, and he's happy to set that up and put a big shutter in here. So we're now working on a more linear workflow where big deliveries come in here, which also works better because space is a bit constricted with other buildings here. So deliveries come in here, boards are stored near this end, near to the Wadkin panel saw and the CNC machine, which is yet to be built. So cutting out occurs this end and then moves down in a workflow down the space. Now I know I've gone a little bit mad on workbenches here, and we're probably not going to be making this many at the start, but there was this concept that let's have some fixed along the wall and some which sort of dock into places but can be wheeled about. So you could wheel one up to the saw, put your stuff straight on it, and then wheel it over to, this might be the edge sanding station or whatever, and then you move on to maybe your drilling or your routing or whatever, not necessarily in that order. And then so eventually you've got your spraying, and then your denibbing, and the details yet to be filled in, but this is the basic idea. And then you get to, this would be like, well, somewhere around here, sort of pre-assembly and then packaging, and stuff would be stored here ready to go into the van. Now the first plan was the office would go up here, so this space currently is open, and we're just sort of laying out like little kitchenette thing, toilet. This would be the office space with desks in it. And then that led on to thinking, well, that, because there's a high ceiling there, we could make that a solid floor and have storage up there, because we're thinking let's keep the main space really efficient and focused and not even give ourselves the option of a bunch of racking to store junk. Let's have one area where you can store junk, but keep that to a minimum. And then that raised issues like access up to there over the CNC machine and that sort of thing. So then we were looking at maybe CNC machine here in this corner next to the spray booth. But then when I went to get the Watkins saw and ended up choosing also a big extractor, proper fine filter extractor, and heard how loud it was, I got to thinking it's not going to make sense for all the loudest machinery to be up this end and the office also to be up this end. So we've now changed our plan to the office is down at this end, away from most of the loud stuff. We've also said, well, there's not a lot of point keeping those two spray booths because one's just going to be in our way. So we wouldn't go messing with the massive fans that go up and vent out through the asbestos roof. We'd probably just try and make sure they're supported structurally in some way and remove the enclosure. So then we've got more workspace here. So this is more the current plan. Lots of space then for the panel saw, which probably is just going to go in the middle there. Stuff comes in here. We're looking at maybe getting a board lifter type thing, sort of poor man's forklift. Boards probably stored along here. So that's quite good. CNC machine and panel saw next to the boards. Because of plumbing, the toilet and kitchenette thing will still be up here. This probably would be enclosed. We thought, well, that's all right. I mean, you can have your office down here, but still have to walk over to that stuff. So still just keeping a workflow, sort of cutting here and then a very planned and efficient set of workstations where your stacks of boards just move from one to the other by whatever means. And a lot of that detail is still to be filled in. We are considering Ron Pork style workbenches. We're also looking at, there's a place called John Burley's in Swinton, not too far from us, that resells old racking and makes it into rigid metal framed workbenches which you can have on wheels. So we might be getting them to do that, because I'm trying to be smart with this and trying to outsource a lot of the stuff that, yes, theoretically we could make it, but we're probably best keeping our labour hours on the production work as much as possible to keep the business going, and then outsourcing some of the making of stuff. So office, we are thinking here, and this is probably where we take deliveries of components and small parts, and we'd have a dedicated table where deliveries come in and then they have to be sorted and they go to pigeonholes for different jobs. And then this, not shown, this would have a structural ceiling and there'd be storage up here, but most of this space would be finished parts. So lent against this wall, lent against that wall, some racking. So probably assembly would be around here, and the stuff's packaged up here just waiting to go out in the van. So big trucks deliver to that shutter, our van sort of takes stuff out of this shutter. That's the plan. A little bit concerned about how much money we could end up sinking into just creating and partitioning off this office, and I am trying to be smart about whatever money we put in, we need to prioritise income generating, value adding activities. So there's a possibility that we even hold off on building the office until we get up and running with production, and just make sure we're making money from the money we've spent. So that, I hope, is an interesting overview of where we're up to with the move. And I think I better leave it at that, because I really need to get on with these projects. I'm meant to be delivering the yellow stuff to the job today. I'll be hitting traffic, but I do just need to print out some drawings that are missing from Brady's drawings pack for this one, so we can get pre-assembling this. So that's what I'll head off and do now. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to your comments, including any advice or pointers you want to give me about setting up a workshop efficiently. See you next time.